Well, hi, everybody, it's another Conversations with, and I'm Dick Bond, and I'm delighted to have Charlie Cook back with us. We had Charlie on a while back, and Charlie is a gun expert, and in addition to that, he does a multitude of other things. So why don't you, I mean, you've been sharing these different things you're doing with me, the in the car thing, and then you're on YouTube, and then you're teaching lessons here in Charlton, as a matter of fact.
Right, right. Well, the stuff that I do is I've been a band teacher for a number of years, so I teach band lessons, and that's my day job.
Right.
But on my side hustle, my side job is as a firearm instructor, and I've been doing that on my own for about I think for about 4 years now. I've been teaching classes on my own. I teach classes in the area. I've taught some classes up in New Hampshire. I've got a place that I teach down on the Cape, and if somebody wants to do have a firearm safety course in their house, I teach it right at their house.
Great.
But what I found a few years ago is I can put my love of music and my love of shooting together, and I make these videos where I play the trumpet with one hand and I shoot a gun with the other hand.
Now, wait a minute. You play the trumpet with one hand, so you got to hold it. You got 3 valves, all right, and so you can play the trumpet with one hand. Yeah, right. I got that. My father used to play, he was in the military, he used to play the bugle in World War I.
Oh my gosh, God bless him.
But in any event, you got that, and then you got the, I got it, okay.
What I did is I have a trumpet that I just...
So now if they get you, you'll be the musical bandit. Okay.
Right.
Okay. The cops have a name for everybody.
Right.
So you come dropping into a bank and you got your horn.
I got to play a horn, right? And play him a little tune, play him a tune on the violin.
Yeah.
I put a pinky ring on the left side of my trumpet so I can hold the trumpet with my left hand.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, I've been playing trumpet with this hand and conducting and doing all sorts of other stuff with my right hand. So to me, switching over and playing a bass drum and a snare drum part while I'm playing the trumpet, this is nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to do because I've been doing it for a long time. So adding shooting a gun is, well, this side's doing this, this one's doing this.
The average person isn't going to be able to do that.
Oh, this is true.
I mean, you got to remember the notes you're playing, and you got to remember.
Right, you got to know when you're shooting.
So you got to.
It's a lot going on. Absolutely, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. The way I started this is I had a friend of mine ask me. We maybe had a couple of drinks, and he said,
Oh, that's good. You got a couple of drinks, and now you got.
No, not when we were shooting. Okay. But we were talking. He said, it'd be really funny is if you played the Blue Danube Waltz and you played bum ba da da da.
Yeah.
And I thought that was ridiculous. So I went home.
You did it anyway.
I did, right.
Yeah.
I went home and I worked on figuring out how many times I could shoot and play through the song once, and how many times I had to shoot. And what I ended up having to do was unload the gun, like drop the magazine out of my handgun, put it in the holster, put in another magazine of ammunition, and then continue shooting while I was playing. And that actually took a little bit of practice.
Now, you know that song you mentioned, the Blue Danube. Years ago, when I first started in radio, and this is years ago, there was a company called Rival Dog Food.
Okay.
And Rival Dog Food's jingle was the Blue Danube Waltz.
Really?
Say, give him Rival Dog Food, and then the dog would bark.
Bark, bark, bark.
Bark, bark. Give him Rival Dog Food, ruff, 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 ruff.
That's
Your
awesome.
dog eyes will shine, his coat's fine, etc.
Well, that's
anyway,
great.
So there you are.
That's great.
But so you've recaptured that great Rival Dog Food commercial.
Sort of.
But no, and you're still teaching your classes.
I still teach gun classes. I work on the week. I do classes on the weekends and usually on Saturdays, but sometimes on Sundays too. So
let me ask you a question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but you're home and you pick up the paper, you're watching TV, and you find out that some goon got on the 13th floor of a hotel and mowed down 50 people who are watching a concert.
Right.
Does that distress you at all? I mean, what would be someone who does this with affection and knowledge and respects using the gun in the right way,
right?
The ultimate respect. What do you think when that happens?
I think that there's...
Because you know the ramifications that are coming.
Right. Oh my gosh, absolutely. Yeah. I think if somebody wants to do evil in a big way, there's not a lot we can do to stop them. And people talk about background checks and universal background checks and more expansive background checks. A lot of people that have A lot of the mass shooters that we've had in the last number of years have either passed the background checks or they've killed people and taken the guns. So that's everything that they've done. Everything they're doing is completely illegal from step one
Oh, yeah.
all the way until to the point where they die.
And I know even in this case in the Vegas massacre, everybody's saying, well, how did this happen? How did he get by? Look, I
It's
shared
easy.
with you the story of the late President Kennedy. And his comment to me was, well, to a bunch of people who were standing around, he said, look, this is a month before he was killed himself. He said, look, if it's tough enough to stop a bullet that you know is coming without trying to stop one that you don't know is coming. And if somebody is willing to give up their life to get yours, there's nothing you can do about it, basically. And that was in 1963. That's a long time ago.
It's a long time ago, yeah.
And he was right.
Absolutely.
And we see it with these nuts on ISIS. Strapping
Strapping
bombs to
onto
themselves, getting on a
Absolutely.
bus and blowing himself and the bus up.
Absolutely.
You know?
So they, I mean, they have. I guess the way I see it is they don't have any respect for themselves, and
No.
maybe they're working on a higher power or,
Right,
or
whatever it is. Good luck
whatever
to
it is.
them,
Right.
yeah.
They have intent to do bodily harm. They
Yeah.
intend on killing people,
Yeah.
and there's nothing that's going to stop
Right,
them.
and they don't care how they do it or when they do
Exactly,
it.
they don't.
And they know in the end, they're going to be part of it.
Yeah, right.
You know,
They
I mean,
they
these,
chalk
these,
it up.
these folks that mow people down and then end up, the last one they fire is at themselves.
This is what I've noticed. Out of all of the mass shootings that we've had, and all the big ones, the only one that didn't kill themselves or get killed by the police officers was the, and I forget his name because I try not to remember
Yeah.
their names, but it was the Batman movie theater shooting from
Yeah.
2012.
Yeah.
He stopped shooting when the cops got there because he knew he was going to get shot and he
Yeah.
probably didn't want to get killed.
No.
But the rest of the guys, we call it suicide by police.
Yeah.
They want to they want to kill a bunch of people and then they want to be killed by the police.
That's right.
Or they kill a bunch of people when they know they're going to get killed, then they kill
Yeah,
themselves.
they wait till they're cornering in on them.
Right.
And then they boom.
And then they shoot
the last
themselves.
the last one they pull
Exactly.
is the
And
one on themselves.
I'm one of these guys, when they say the death toll, they'll say, well, 59 people, including the shooter was killed. You know what? 58 people. This guy was going to kill himself anyway.
That's right.
He shouldn't be counted in the...
No, and you know, and they say, you talk to some of the psychiatrists, well, they do it for the notoriety. Well, unfortunately, after they've killed themselves, they missed all the notoriety.
This is true.
They missed it.
Maybe that's a little benefit, right?
Well, you know, I used to say one of my big gripes was what we do in this country is we wait till some poor soul dies and then we name the library after them.
Right?
And he never knew it.
He had no idea.
Do it before he dies, will you? You know. But I
Maybe
mean,
we should all fake our death so we can hear what everyone has, the good things they have to say
they're
about
going to
us.
give me something, do it.
Right.
So I can see it.
So I can enjoy
no,
it.
But really, you know, we're in a time where, I mean, I grew up, I was a teenager in the 50s, and it was a different world. It was a different world in the United States then. When I went to school, I graduated from high school in '53 and went to BU. It was a different world.
Right.
You know, and I always tell people, if you lived in Malden, where I grew up, you were either an Irish Catholic, an Italian Catholic, or a Jew. That's who lived there.
That's
You
it,
know?
right.
And we had sections of town.
Sure.
And if you did anything, by the time you got home,
Your mother
father
knew.
already knew.
Right.
Okay, the neighbors, what you couldn't. I was telling someone the other day, a good friend of mine who was a police officer, and we used to have a curfew in Malden at 9 o'clock. The fire whistles would blow 3 times.
Right.
If you were under 18, had to be home. And if you weren't, they'd pick you up in the cruiser and take you home.
Oh my gosh.
You know. But Tommy Heath was the cop in the square where we all used to meet, Malden Square, still there. And we used to hang around the square. And Tommy Heath knew every kid. And he'd walk around about 8:45, and he'd say, Vaughn, I know where you live. You better get going. You got to be home by 9. Now, if you
That's
don't
funny.
get going pretty quick, I'll take you home. And if he took you home in that car, and he didn't just take you home, he'd walk you to the door.
To the door,
And he'd say,
knock
"Mr.
on the
Vaughn,
door, here's your son."
Here's your son. It's after
Right.
9. And he knew that your father would do a bigger job on you than he would.
Exactly.
You know, and
Exactly.
now, if a cop did that today, they'd have him under charges.
Oh
and
my
he'd
gosh,
be arrested.
it's
You know,
completely ridiculous. Yeah.
But you respected Tommy when he told you to get going. You got,
you got going. Absolutely.
You know, you didn't argue with him, and it was a different world. you know, and you know, if your father gave you a knuckle sandwich, he didn't get arrested. You know.
This is true. Now they call DCFS.
Well, yeah, you know. But I mean, the sad part is that our whole society is eroded, you know. And the bottom line is, there were guns back in the 50s. People had them. There was, you know, we just didn't have these guys. And the tragedy is that in many cases, and I can't say all cases, but in many cases, the poor person, or I say the poor person, the person was deranged or had a mental issue or was really struggling in his own life.
Sure.
And it was a desperation or whatever made him think about doing it, whatever it was. And how did that go undetected? And we spend all this time. It's just like I get a tremendous charge out of a catastrophe like that. They want to know the motive.
Who cares?
Does it make?
It doesn't make any difference,
40
right?
people dead and he's dead. What difference? Why spend any time trying to figure out the motive? What's that going to do for you? You know.
Right. It's gonna. I think it's gonna make people feel. I don't want to say better about it, but accept it and understand.
Right.
And the thing is, it's going to happen again, whether it's in San Bernardino or
Yeah.
the Pulse nightclub or the Vegas shooting or the school shootings and all this.
Right. I mean, look at it cost. We have the Super Bowl coming up. I was watching a thing. They've got military Humvees into Minneapolis surrounding the ballpark. Okay, I mean, and they got so many. I forget how many there was. So many police officers. Each town in the area had to
Right.
send so many police officers. They've got the National Guard. They got umpteen undercover police officers who are going to be at the game.
Right.
And now you're probably going to have a $2 or $3 million cost just to
Oh my
pay
gosh,
them
yeah.
for overtime.
Exactly.
And you think about it, you say, wow. I remember as a kid, I could go to Fenway Park and watch the Red Sox. You know, and there was 2 cops if there was that many outside the ballpark.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Now you got to go through a
You
gate.
gotta go through gate and metal detector and pat you down and everything.
Get patted down. And
Right.
You can't bring backpacks and you can't bring. I mean, when you think of what's happened. Now let's get back to you. You must have people call up and say, "Boy, Charlie, I'm concerned. Can you teach me how to use a gun?"
I have. I've had a lot of people do that. To me, it's a little sobering. Like I take a fun attitude towards it. I want people to be safe with a gun. The way I see it is that I'm easygoing. I'm relatively entertaining. I can teach them how to be safe.
Yeah.
And whatever their purpose in having a firearm is not. It's not up to me. If they want to have it to go shooting, great. If they want it for hunting, great.
Yeah.
If they want it for personal protection, great. I
Yeah.
want to steer them in the right direction so they learn as much as they can and they're as proficient as they can be.
Know when to
and-
use it and how to use it.
Exactly. So that's my deal. I want to teach a lot of people how to be safe. So get people up and going so that they become familiar and safe and they don't hurt themselves. Right. I also want to, I guess I want to change their attitude a little bit about it also so that so that they don't think you're crazy for having a gun or for carrying some sort of a defensive tool, you know, whether it's a knife or a gun.
Yeah.
I know plenty of guys that carry both, and I find I carry a pocket knife, and I find I use it on a very regular basis. And to me, it's just a tool. So the guns are just tools. If somebody wants to do something bad with it, then somebody does something bad with it. But I want to be able to have a tool myself to be able to protect me.
Well, it's just like an automobile. I mean, we've got these folks now that take a vehicle and drive down the sidewalk and run people over.
Right.
You know, so it doesn't matter. If you want to do something bad,
You're going to do it.
you're going to do it no matter. I mean, you don't need a gun. You know,
don't.
You
This
can
is
take
true.
a truck or a car and drive down the street and run people over.
Absolutely. I tell people when I teach the class, I say the mind is the weapon and everything else is the tool. So I've on. I know I'm going to sound like a crazy man, but when I go on airplanes, I have a couple of metallic, like aluminum. I have one tactical pen. I have one aluminum pen that I found someplace, and I can use them for poking or prodding devices if I need to. It's just a pen, and you can take a pen on an airplane, but you can't take a knife on an airplane.
Now, you know, one of the things that I found stunning, there was a story on the news last night that loaded weapons on airplanes have increased.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, and so there was a big story about it. That last year there was 3,926 people, and then there was, 28,000 who got stopped.
Wow. Now, see,
Now I'm saying to myself, knowing that you can't take a gun on an airplane, what would possess?
What
I
would you
forgot
think?
it was there.
Right.
What?
It's now.
How do you forget you gotta?
There are, and I've got a lot of friends. The stuff that I've done, I've met a lot of people around the country that carry. They'll carry a firearm, and there are a lot of holsters. There's a lot of small guns that you can buy that are easy and convenient. There are some holsters that the gun disappears and you forget that it's on you.
Yeah.
And it's weird to think that somebody could go to an airport and forget they have a gun on them. But I've gone to places and and then all of a sudden I bring my hand back. I'm like, ooh, that's right, I got the gun on my hip.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if I would forget that I had one going to an airport. But I mean, having said that, I had a friend of mine that was caught at an airport with, I gave her a credit card knife. And it's the size of a credit card. It's a piece of plastic. You fold it open, and there's a little metal blade on there. And it's really sharp. And I found a place where I buy these, and I buy them super cheap, and I give them to friends. Hey, here's a credit card knife. Stick it in your wallet. You never know. So she took one with her and brought it down to, she flew out of Boston down to Dulles in Washington, D.C. Everything was fine. When they had her in Washington, D.C., they pulled her aside. They're like, hey, is there anything in your purse we should know about? And she's like, no. They're like, are you sure? And she's like, no. And they're like, are you sure there's nothing in your wallet that you want to tell us about? And she's like, Charlie, are you kidding me? Yeah. So she ended up having to give them her little credit card knife. But like I said, the knives are just a tool. It's just like everything else. I've brought this on airplanes. I know this sounds crazy too, but I brought aerosol hairspray and a Bic lighter on an airplane. And there's nothing wrong with an aerosol hairspray. There's nothing wrong with a Bic lighter, but you can make that into a little flamethrower.
Well, not
that I'm encouraging people to do
Never
this.
mind a flamethrower. Most of the aircraft have cloth seats.
Right.
All you do is take the Bic lighter
Light
and light it on fire.
So if somebody wanted to,
Bring the
do
plane
something
down,
on the plane,
have a nice day.
Absolutely. I did get caught. I spoke at a conference in Dallas in September, and I was flying out of Hartford, and they took my Kubotan. Now, a Kubotan's a little stick. It's a little bit bigger and thicker than a pen. It's probably about the diameter of a Sharpie, but probably 2 inches longer. And it's a keychain, is what it is, but you can poke and prod and do all sorts of defensive stuff with it. I got caught with this at the Hartford airport, and they took it away from me. The lady asked me if I knew what it was for and how did I use it, and I'm like, well, that's why I have it, because I know how to use it. And then she took it away from me, and then literally I'm like, okay, I have my 2 tactical pens in my computer bag. I have the aerosol hairspray. I have a Bic lighter. Okay, take that. That's if I wanted to do harm, or if I want to be able to protect myself, I still have other things. No, they don't take the. It's the small sample size.
Oh, okay.
So.
And they don't bother you.
It's under 3 ounces.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's the funny part. I mean, if you really, there's a good example. If you really wanted to do something on the plane.
Oh, of course, you could. You could still harm somebody. Absolutely.
Yep. It's unbelievable. So now let's get back to your teaching. You teach courses.
Yes, I do.
So
I
if
teach.
people want to know more about gun, let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Somebody wants to know, how do I get a hold of Charlie, and how do I?
Okay.
And you do a class here in Charlton, even.
I do classes where they need to be done.
Yeah.
People can find me at personalshootinginstruction@gmail.com. That's my email address, and I've got a personal shooting instruction Facebook page, and personalshootinginstruction.com is my website. So that's where people can find me if they want to take a firearm safety course to get their gun license.
And I mean, the interesting thing is, let's chat about the course. Just like a brief overview or a summary.
Sure.
What do they learn how to properly handle a weapon?
Yep, what they learn is I teach everyone the 3 rules of gun safety, which is always keep it in a safe direction, always keep your finger off the trigger, and always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. So we go through the safety procedures. We talk about loading and unloading different types of firearms. So I bring in some handguns, I bring in a shotgun, and I bring in an AR-15. We go through all of how you load and unload each of these. We talk about ammunition, how ammunition works. We talk about cleaning real quick, and then I spend time talking about the Massachusetts gun laws and what they need to do to apply for a license, and the things they can have and the things they can't have. And
Yeah, because you hear these, every once in a while, these sad stories of 2 kids found Daddy's gun, and they didn't realize it was loaded.
Right.
And they shoot their brother. You
Yep,
know?
and that's the two causes for firearms accidents, and I'm going to use air quotes when I say that. The two causes for firearms accidents are ignorance and carelessness. It's not knowing what the safety rules are or breaking all three of the safety rules. And the other one is keeping something unsecured so that somebody has access to it that shouldn't. What I like about the three safety rules, and the reason we have three of them, is because you can break one of them and everything's okay. You can break two of them and everything's okay. But when you break three safety rules,
You got a problem.
that's going to be a problem. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's interesting. So give those three rules again.
All right. So the rules are: always keep a gun pointed in a safe direction. Always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot, and always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. Now, safe directions can change. Some people think up is a safe direction. Some people think down is a safe direction. But those aren't safe directions. It depends on where you're at. Usually if you're at an indoor range, they have a wall. That's the backstop area, and that's your safe direction. Or if you belong to an outdoor range, they're going to have a big hill or a berm, and that's the impact area, and that's where you want all the bullets to go to.
You talk about that, and it just comes to mind. About a week and a half ago, I'm watching the morning news. I get up at 4:30, watch the news. And there was a situation in Boston police. A guy on the second floor pointed the gun at the floor and pulled the trigger. And the bullet just missed somebody who lived below.
On the first floor. Wow.
Just missed them.
Yeah.
You know, and they were getting out of bed.
Oh my gosh.
And the bullet, boom, came right down through the floor.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
You know, and so to your point,
So let's see.
pointed the gun.
Finger was on the trigger.
Yeah.
It was in an unsafe direction. It was a safe. I want to say it was an unsafe direction. Somebody's downstairs.
Well, yeah, if you're on
and
the
it was
second
loaded.
floor and there's
The
someone
third
living,
floor was the safe.
yeah, and there's someone downstairs, and you know they live there.
Right.
It's not a safe direction.
It's not a safe direction.
You know?
Yeah. So whenever there's an accident, all three rules are being broken. And it's certainly very important to emphasize that. And I, with my kids are teenagers, I taught them gun safety when they were,
Yeah.
I called it Nerf gun safety. And Nerf
Yeah.
gun safety for my son was, if you're in a Nerf gun fight with your friends,
Yeah.
don't shoot your mother and don't shoot your sister.
Yeah.
Because they're not playing. But if your sister's playing, then you can shoot her.
Yeah.
But if she's not playing, you can't shoot her.
Yeah.
So.
You know, it is. It's just, and I think there's so much emotion gets into it. You know, we have a tragedy, and we certainly have tragedies, and everybody gets emotional, and they lose their perspective. You know, and to your point, just stop and think about the three safety rules.
Yep.
If they were obeyed, there wouldn't have been that issue.
Every time I read a story about an accidental shooting, I always say, okay, well, let's see. What was the safety rule? Finger was on the trigger, gun was loaded, pointed in an unsafe direction.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah. Cool.
There was a story that I used in my class where there was a couple of YouTubers, a guy and a gal in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and he heard that if you fired a gun into a book, the book would stop the bullet. That's partly true, but the book he used wasn't big enough, and the bullet he used was too big. So he had some really large caliber handgun, held the book to his chest. His girlfriend shot into the book. The bullet went right through the book, right into him, and it killed him.
Yeah.
And I believe they brought her up on manslaughter charges. Right?
Poor her.
Completely ridiculous.
Well, you know, yeah. I mean, that's what that would be called Russian roulette.
Right.
You know. Now let's go back to that. When do you keep a gun loaded? Because now that raises an issue. If you have it for protection, you got to know. You don't know when someone's going to come busting into your house.
This is true. This is true. Now, most of the people that I've come to know, they adopt this thing that they call POGO, P-O-G-O, pants on, gun on. And I know it seems, I know to some people it might seem crazy, but I often carry a gun, and when I do carry a gun and I go home, I still have the gun on me. I don't take it off just because I'm home. And it's just, I have a holster that's very comfortable, so I can forget that the gun's on my hip until, I don't know, until I sit down or lean over or something, until I bump into the wall or a chair. So it's that. So I've actually had people over at my house, and I've had on, I remember a couple summers ago, I had on a pair of shorts and a tank top shirt,
Yeah.
and then a button-down shirt. But I had the button-down shirt off, and I was carrying my gun, and you couldn't see, I put the shirt on, you couldn't
Yeah.
see that I was carrying. And then a friend of mine came over, and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just whatever, reading."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Dude, you're packing heat?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry."
Well, but there was even a story, I don't know, a year ago, where a police officer came home at night, took his gun holster off, put it on the dresser. A little later on, one of his kids, took the gun and went out to show the neighbors.
Right.
Look at my father's, this is his gun. And the poor cop almost lost his job.
Sure, sure.
The kids had the gun out in the neighborhood.
Now, see, the two causes for firearms accidents: carelessness and ignorance.
Yeah.
And this would be carelessness.
Yeah.
What I've done with my kids, and again, my kids are teenagers. I've done gun safety with them since they were 4, 5, 6 years old, and now they still, when we go to the range and go shooting, we still, okay, what's the safety rules? Do we have to? Yes, we do. Okay, safe direction, finger off the trigger, check and make sure it's loaded.
But the thing comes down to I guess it comes down to respect.
Oh, it absolutely does.
Respect what you have.
Absolutely.
What you have will kill somebody if you don't
If you don't know how
follow
to use
your
it.
3 rules.
Exactly. It's like a car. It's like a knife. It's
Yeah.
like a swimming pool.
Yeah.
It's just a tool. It's all it is.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
But no, those 3 rules are just, and you think about it, if they were obeyed,
We can eliminate all of the accidents that
it'd
we
be
have.
amazing
Yeah,
how many things we could eliminate.
absolutely.
Not just accidents, but even some of the stuff that's going on in the world. If they just think, but of course they're deliberately trying to get somebody.
Right.
But I know Bill Evans, a fellow you said you heard, is the police commissioner, and he gets on almost every time they interview him. He said, we have way too many guns on the street with these kids who don't know how to use them.
Now, I'll tell you this. I do listen to the NPR station
Yeah.
out of Boston, and I do call in on a fairly regular
Yeah.
basis. I don't have my own segment. They don't know me
No,
by
right.
name, but I am Charlie from Sturbridge.
Yeah.
And I did call, and I ended up talking to Marty Walsh one time.
Yeah.
And this was, I'm going to say it was May of 2016.
Yeah.
I called in, and they were talking. We got guns in
Yeah.
the street, and kids are shooting each other. And I'm like, I called in. I said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we admit that the adults are not being responsible and teach the kids how to be safe? And they thought I was nuts and crazy and hung up on me. So if we teach kids how to be safe, if we teach kids how to respect these, then that could possibly eliminate
You're right.
some
The
problems.
problem they have is the kids who got them don't want to respect them.
This is true. Now that's a completely different issue.
The ones they're talking about are
Right.
these gangs that
Exactly.
are all around, and they're out to get each other.
Absolutely.
And so but their trouble is that in a lot of cases an innocent person gets hit
Right.
because and look at the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
They put bullets through a car because it was the same car that the guy that they thought was in.
Right. It was the wrong person.
It's the wrong person.
Yeah.
And now I have one other question, and you can maybe answer it. You can shoot a gun and not kill somebody.
Oh, absolutely. It happens.
So if you don't want to kill somebody, you can shoot them without killing them.
Uno momento, por favor. So, here's the scoop. If you're in if you're pulling a gun on someone because your life is being threatened, either you're using lethal force or you're not using lethal force. So if somebody comes towards me and they've got a knife and they say they're going to slice my throat, I'm going to shoot them. If they die from me shooting them, so be it.
Yeah.
My job to myself is to protect me.
Yeah.
And if when that person's no longer a threat, then that's when I'm supposed to stop shooting.
Yeah.
So if somebody's coming towards me and they've got a knife and they say they want to kill me, then I have the duty to protect myself. And if I shoot them someplace and they die, okay. If I shoot them and they don't die,
Either way.
I've had a lot of people say that, I've got a friend that was a cop, or I watched a TV show, I watched CSI, and they said you should don't shoot to kill, shoot them in the leg.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you have this big torso and you have these 2 moving legs, and which one's going to be an easier target
Well,
for
number
you
one,
to shoot?
if you do hit him in the leg, and he's got a gun, and as he's falling down from the pain, he whips around and blows you away.
Well, you can
guess
still
what?
shoot him then, right?
Yeah.
There's this great scene in this movie called Collateral. And in the gun world, we talk about it a lot. It's called the briefcase scene.
Yeah.
And in the briefcase scene, these two criminal. In the premise of the movie is Jamie Foxx is a cab driver and Tom Cruise is a hired assassin. And Jamie Foxx comes over and Tom Cruise hires Jamie Foxx to drive him around all night. Two bad guys steal this briefcase from Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise gets out. They pull a gun on him. He shoots the first guy in the chest 2 times and he falls down. Shoots the second guy 2 times in the chest and once in the head and he falls down. Then he goes over and picks up the briefcase and he shoots the first guy in the head, and that's when he becomes a bad guy because he shoots the guys no longer a threat. When he uses excessive force, then he becomes the bad guy.
Got it. Charlie, once again, thank you so much. It was a great visit. We'll have to have you back again and chat some more about this because, folks, this is an interesting situation, and I just thought it'd be a great time to have Charlie on. And so, Charlie, thanks so much.
Thank you, Dick. I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Thank
There
you.
you are, folks, and other conversations with.